We're having a hearing on countering illicit fentanyl trafficking. A lot of my colleagues have seemed to be focusing on the real substantive challenges we have at the border. I think it was suggested earlier that we closed the border, but we know that Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said that it is unequivocally false that fentanyl is being brought to the United States by non-citizens encountered between the ports of entry who are making claims of credible fear and seeking asylum. The problem at the border is real. It spiked tremendously under the Trump administration relative to the Obama administration. But in a hearing about fentanyl, when there's nobody from Customs and Border Patrol here, to try to say that that folks coming to our border seeking asylum or seeking escaping challenges, to say that that is the center of the fentanyl crisis is just not true. We have a bipartisan urgency to deal with this crisis, and it's frustrating to me that in this hearing, a lot of folks want to try to levy other issues that are not central to dealing with this scourge. And so I'd like to just shift my questioning really quickly back to what I think are some of the real pressing issues at hand. And Mr. Secretary Robinson, if I may, the challenges we have are connected, as we've talked about, to countries around the world, and the need is clear to coordinate an effective strategy. I know that one forum where I hope that this is dealt with is the UN Commission on Narcotic Drugs. And I understand the commission is expected to meet just next month. And so I'm wondering, number one, how active is the PRC, which is a major source of this problem? How active has the PRC been on this commission, and what do you hope to see come from it?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. In fact, the PRC is active. As I mentioned earlier, just last year we were able to schedule internationally three precursor chemicals and put them under international monitoring with the agreement of the PRC on this issue. The CND, the Commission on Narcotic Drugs, is active on this issue. The UN across the board is active on this issue. Dr. Gupta and I will be representing the United States at the CND in March precisely on this issue.
And because, again, I just want to reiterate for the record that folks seeking asylum or fleeing horrific violence, we know that the problem is really coming through ports of entry. Overwhelmingly, the fentanyl problem in the United States, that is the source, right?
That's correct.
And the role that China is playing in that is something that should be at the center of our focus in dealing with this, correct?
Absolutely.
All right. Administrator Milgram, a recent Washington Post article highlighted the expansion of legalization of fentanyl test kits. While these kits were historically considered paraphernalia, Republican governors and lawmakers in Alabama, Ohio, Mississippi, Texas, and elsewhere have supported and legalized these kits that can help people see if the drugs are contaminated with fentanyl, the drugs they're taking. I just really want to know what your view is of these fentanyl test kits.
Senator, that fentanyl test kits are run from HHS. They're the lead agency in addressing these issues. What I can tell you is we know that a number of things are being researched at HHS. And the one thing that I've looked to see, and just to make sure that I can understand, is the use of something like a fentanyl test strip on a counterfeit fake pill, and just how effective that can be to make sure that people understand. Again, one of our core things is having public awareness and making sure people understand the threats that are out there.
That's your one pill can kill campaign.
That's our one pill can kill campaign. But I would really turn to the health experts at HHS that I know are looking at the test kits issue.
So maybe I can get you just to respond for the record. you said something I thought was really important, that you're not even using the language overdose anymore. These are folks who think they're taking something else, and then they take one pill and face this horrific health reaction that could result in death. And so you can understand at least these Republican leaders around our country saying, well, let's try to figure out ways with which we can prevent that from happening, and that maybe this is one way that people who are actually looking to save lives, perhaps this is one way to go about that.
Senator, I can tell you part of DEA is our regulatory division, and so we think every day about, are there ways that we can save American lives through that work? And that's why we've been supportive, for example, of the MAT Act to expand treatment to all Americans who need it for medication and for opioid use disorder. So anything that DEA can do within our authorities, we are looking at.
And just with the indulgence of the chair, one last point. So here we have this horrific problem that is that all of us have personal connection to. The people dying in our states. New Jersey obviously has seen this crisis, and as we go about dealing with this, I'm wondering the past lessons we've learned from the so-called war on drugs and others, seeing an array of ways of approaching it, and maybe I can direct that to Dr. Gupta. We need to start looking at other ways to solve this crisis that may not have been in the playbook at all in our past efforts with the so-called war on drugs from decades past.
Exactly right, Senator Booker, and this is why the Biden drug control strategy, for the first time in the history of the United States government, recognizes harm reduction as an important tool. That includes naloxone, includes testing strips for fentanyl, as well as student service programs, in addition to expanding treatment, recovery, and prevention. Because to add those pieces is the second part of the same coin. We need to be looking at it as one coin where there's a challenges with supply and aspects, but also demand reduction is very critical, because we've got 9 million Americans that are suffering from opioid use disorder today, in addition to those who are
just
dying.
Simple.
Yeah.
Law enforcement is necessary but not sufficient to solving this crisis in the United States of America, correct?
Absolutely correct.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Senator Booker.